Hello everyone, my name is Miikka Aalto and I come from Hyperautomation, Finland. And today I want to talk about hyperautomation and what that is and how do we actually do it. But before we actually start to discuss the actual topic, I want to first take on the question, why do we automate? So there are many different reasons why we want to consider automation, but ultimately we want to do automation in order to free people to do things where they are truly needed. So, for example, making human decisions, making emotion-based decisions, or making communication with other people. Of course, nowadays, for example, in communication, we use machines more and more, but they are still not really there yet as we go into deeper discussions. But maybe in the future, we can actually use machines more and more in these scenarios as well. Other benefits from automation are, of course, that robots, they don't do human errors, but if there is a mistake in the robot's recording, they will, of course, repeat the errors and the mistakes much faster and continuously, which is something that humans probably wouldn't do. But overall, in many cases, it would provide us savings when we actually can avoid those human mistakes. And we can also, when we can actually also automate full processes, do automated data processing, then we need less human workforce, which in many cases also gives us some savings. There are actually different names given for the same ideology. So there are intelligent process automation, or IPA, a name given by IDC, and there was an unknown agency that gave it the name Smart Process Automation, or SPA. Forrester has a name Digital Process Automation, or DPA, and then Gartner is using the word hyperautomation, which is something that we have also taken into use. But they actually all mean the same thing. But what do they actually mean? So here I actually like to mention two different abbreviations. So BPA, or Business Process Automation, and RPA, which is the Robot Process Automation. And RPAs is actually those things where the robots would actually replace human actions, while BPA is the one that handles everything else that enables automation between the systems and processes. And both of these are, of course, needed. They both have their place in the world. RPA is just simpler, but it's actually a lot slower. And when we are doing RPA, we don't really know, we don't really need to know how the process actually goes about. We just need to record the human actions, what happens on the UI, for example. Whereas in BPA, it's much faster and it's more efficient. And of course, you create a lot less errors with that approach. When we actually talk about hyperautomation, it is actually the combination of both of these things or methods. So this is actually an example process from our integration platform, Friends. It uses this visual notation, BBMN 2.0, that is used to describe and develop all kinds of integration scenarios. From this example, you can actually see there are several triggers that actually work also as the sources, which in this case provide these different types of salary materials. And if the process is actually taking the materials to a new system, then it would be handled in the upper part of the process that is visualized in purple. In that part of the process, it actually directly uses APIs to move the data. And in this case, we don't even need a robot to handle anything. We only need the integration platform's capabilities to run the process. But if we have a process that is going on the lower path or the yellow path, and it's taking the data to an older system that might be handling, for example, some specific collective agreements, then it's actually at first good to properly prepare the material so that the RPA recording would be as short as possible and run the RPA recording as a part of this managed process. And if the process is successful, it shows green and it provides us the completed instance. But if it fails, then we will actually have an alert that is actually alerting or sending a message directly to the operator, including the link to that specific part of the process where the error actually happened. And we can also move materials that are not recognized by the system to be manually handled. For example, in SharePoint, where a person could actually go there and then manually handle those materials. But the point is here that whatever the material is, everything will be handled despite the material type. And there's of course a huge benefit when we prepare and keep the RPA recordings short and less error prone, because this can also create us some savings where we don't need to use that many expensive robots to handle things or run any parts of the process. So when we can actually do more automation with the integration platform, that actually speeds up the process and makes it more efficient. Actually, as another example, this image is actually a little bit blurry, but hopefully it's clear enough. This is something that is actually built by one of our customers, and this process is actually a bit more advanced, as it's actually including some intelligence also. So this is actually an API call where all service tickets from different sources are targeted toward one API. And this API then provides the data to a pre-educated machine learning engine in Azure to be processed. And this pretty much defines to which category and to which class the received ticket and data belongs to, and then it directs it to the right place. And before they actually built this, they had to use at least half a day to run all these tickets, as there is a huge amount of tickets processed in an organization of their size. And you can actually imagine if this was a process for handling forms or something else, this way we can actually easily combine process automation and AI into it. So it doesn't really matter if there are recordings or not included. And that is because, of course, that the combination of Friends and RPA, or more specifically UiPath in this case, and Azure Machine Learning is pretty much all of it. So in our eyes, hyperautomation is exactly about this combination. And in most of our cases, 50% has been business process automation, or BPA. 20% has been about creating APIs. 10% has been about machine learning to enable that a piece of intelligence into it. And on top of all of these things, which is how also Gardner defines hyperautomation, there should be live monitoring from the data that is being processed. So it can be any kind of data that we want to monitor in this case. And with and from Friends, you can actually build separate analytics to gain better visibility. And here is actually a full picture of hyperautomation, IPA, DPA, or SPA, whatever name you want to prefer in this matter. But it's a process automation entirety combined with APIs, machine learning, and robots, where in our case we use UiPath and then of course the live monitoring. In this slide, we actually have some example where and when to use integration platform, and when should we use robots and when should we use AI. But I just wanted to give you a short glimpse. I'm not going to go through these in detail at this point, but I think it gives a good idea of when and where to use these different methods. And this image actually puts everything together with a hyperautomation platform. Well, with this, we can actually answer all the API needs. Our partners actually can consume those APIs, or we can provide the processes within an API to, for example, our customers or consumers, depending on the use case that we have. And this is actually quite common input nowadays, but of course, if it's good to go the old style and have scheduled processes, then that is also a valid way of doing things. And the task of the integration platform is to basically handle the API management, publishing APIs, and doing the process automation. And of course, if needed, then also run the possible recordings within those processes. For example, in a case where there are no APIs available, or defining the process is actually too complicated, and it's just easier to kind of record parts of the process with a robot. And the platform is actually also used for data mapping, utilizing, in this case, hundreds of different connectors to different systems and different standards. And as a result, well, basically, we need 50% less robots. We get more efficient automation, which also gives us lower TCO when we actually don't have any black boxes. But on the other side, we have shorter recordings and larger process automations. And in our eyes, we actually prefer having the same team handling both process automation and or the RPA things, RPA recordings, and the integrations, because we often see that there are separate teams for both. One team doing the RPA, one team doing the integrations. But since both actually do process automation, it's better to keep those things together. And when we also add that small drop of intelligence into it, they can actually do decisions what humans have made, and they can actually do decisions that humans couldn't do when they actually find these things that humans cannot find. Well, this is actually all for now on hyperautomation, and hopefully you have found this interesting, and please do let us know if you'd like to learn more. Thank you.